Okay, we're live.
All right, I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Once again, under Executive Order 202.1, we are temporarily suspending in-person public meetings, and they can be viewed on our school's YouTube channel. We have the approval of the minutes from March 30th, 2021. Do we have a motion to accept them as submitted?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And the approval of the CSE CPSC recommendations. If there are no questions on that, do we have a motion to accept them as submitted?
I'll make it.
the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we have public comment. As stated before, Executive Order 202.1 has temporarily suspended in-person public meetings. If someone would like to make a public comment, they may do so by emailing the BOE at waltoncsd.org or by calling 607-865-4116, extension 6130. Corey, at this time, do we have any public comments?
Yes, we did receive one public comment from Mr. Matthew Northrup. Dr. McDonald has shared this comment in its entirety with the board. In summary, the recently enacted high school process of parents having to call in to place students on temporary remote learning for a day or several days prevented a student from attending on 2 occasions. Both issues were a result of communication failure between the health office and the main office and between the parent and the main office. Mr. Northrup is suggesting that a more inclusive policy would be to allow students to attend digitally any day they are absent for whatever reason, because he feels even if they get 50% of the information, then they are 50% ahead of what they would have gotten by not being allowed in class. And I would like to say on behalf of the board, we appreciate the comment and will ensure that the appropriate personnel are directed to address the concerns.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
And yes, thank you, Mr. Northrup, for submitting that public comment. And we will certainly make sure that the appropriate personnel have that. And were there any other personal or public comments?
No.
Okay. All right, we have possible discussion items. The strategic planning process. Dr. McDonald had supplied this. Are there any questions or concerns? Do we have a consensus to proceed with this? And this is a BOCES service.
I'm good with it.
I'm good.
I think it's fine. Agree.
So that's a yes?
Yes,
Yes.
and Graydon was not able to attend this evening, but he did contact me and thought that it was well-timed and the focus was spot on. So he was in agreement with it as well. So, and I think so too.
Okay, appreciate that. We'll move forward. Very extensive process and very inclusive of all of our stakeholders and community. This ought to be a really fun, interesting process.
Yeah, and it's nice that we are including, you know, the public.
Yep, absolutely.
Oh, yes. All right, a reminder that we have a special Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, April 27th at 6 p.m. This is to adopt the BOCES administrative budget and board candidate vote. This should be a short meeting. Won't that be nice, especially after tonight's? All right, are there any correspondence?
No.
All right. Are there any new agenda items?
No, we do not have anything tonight.
Okay. So our consent agenda, we have the financial reports. We have the budget transfers, the declared surplus, to appoint the election inspectors and assistant clerks, to accept the MOU for retiree employment of Michael Tweedy, to accept the retirements of Tara Sackett and Jean Hunt, and to accept the unpaid leave of absence of Sierra Bertzel, and as well as the athletic recommendations. Are there any questions or concerns on that? If not, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. All right. We have received donations. We have approximately 200 masks from Joanne Pomeroy to the middle high school. And we have an eScience Lab microbiology kit materials from Jennifer Fay to the O'Neill High School Science Department. Do we have a motion to accept the generous donations?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept them.
Second,
Arnie will second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Sorry, opposed? No, okay. Motion carried. Next, we have the approval of the Ogden Library proposition for the ballot. And this is in accordance to the New York State education law. You will notice that this is asking for an increase. The library is asking for an increase of $1,887 to be added to the tax levy. Or I'm sorry, not to the tax levy, but onto the budget. Do we have a motion to accept that?
I'll move it.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. And we have the adoption of the 21-22 budget. The budgeted amount is $22,292,000. And this comes with a tax levy increase of 0.65%, which equates to approximately $44,000. And we have the budget vote May 18th. Are there any questions or concerns? If not, do we have a motion to approve the budget for the 21-22 school year?
Paul will make the motion.
Kevin, did you second that?
That's fine.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we have the adoption of the bus proposition, and this is for the lease of 3 buses. And I'm sorry, I'm just making sure I'm on the right page here. An estimated maximum cost of $325,000 in its entirety, and that will be, or not to exceed 5 years. And this does receive aid on this. Do we have a motion to accept the bus proposition?
I'll make it.
Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Next, we have the adoption of the 21-22 property tax report card. Meg, would you like to touch on this a little bit? I know this is overwhelming at times, the report card.
Sure, I can. Let me just pull it up on my computer.
I think it would just help people understand it also when it comes in the mail.
So basically, it goes through and it just compares this year's budget to last year's budget, as well as the amount of the levy, and shows the increases. I'm going to pull up a different one in just a second. So I want to pull up exactly what you're looking at so I can
Sure,
refer to
no
the right
problem.
lines. The line F identifies the exclusions from the tax levy limit. Last year, the amount was $395.56. This year, it's $340,375. That's the amount of capital related items that are included in the budget that we're allowed to exclude from the tax cap. Basically shows, if you look at line H, it shows the amount of the levy excluding those items, and it compares the calculated amount of the tax cap to how much we're levying. And you'll see that last year we levied just $507 less than the cap amount, and this year it's 110. So we're levying basically right at the allowable cap amount. And then they also have us report our school enrollment, which we all know has increased over the last several years. It asks for information on fund balance. So you'll see there, fund balance as we started this fiscal year was unrestricted was 1.1 million. We anticipate not having to use any of the $525,000 appropriated fund balance. And so we have a projected unrestricted fund balance at year end, and that includes the amounts that we've anticipated putting into the different, or approved putting into the different reserve funds we have. The estimated amount of fund balance for 21-22 assumes that we use all the $775,000 of appropriated fund balance in next year's budget. We hope that that's not the case, but it makes that assumption. The next part just lists all of the reserve funds that the district has. The 3/31 actual balance is the balance in the bank at that date. And then the 6/30/21 balance includes transfers that have either been approved by the board or we anticipate approving by year end. So I'm projecting us putting at least $225,000 into the capital reserve by the end of the year. So that's reflected there, as well as the $50,000 property loss reserve that the board already approved, and the monies for the ERS and the TRS reserve. We held off on actually transferring those funds until we received some of the large state aid payments that we got in March. That's why they're not reflected in the March 31st balances. We hadn't made those transfers yet. And that's the report card.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or concerns on that? If not, do we have a motion to adopt the 21-22 property tax report card?
Arnie, I'll move it. Arnie will second it.
Okay, Chad and Arnie. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, and next we have the adoption of the resolution authorizing the issuance of the serial general obligation bond. And the estimated maximum cost is not to exceed $8,214,000. This was quite lengthy. Are there any questions or concerns on this? If not, do we have a motion to approve that bond?
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll
Kevin,
second.
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. And we had discussed this before in RFP for school attorney services. Had everybody had a chance to review that? Are there any questions or concerns on that or recommended changes? If not, do we have a motion to accept that? So that can be sent out.
Arnie will make it.
Second,
Chad will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. And next we have the approval of the creation of a CTE programs equipment reserve account by DCM Moboses.
Would you like me to comment on this?
Yes, please.
For a number of years, actually for the existence of BOCES, DCMO purchased their equipment depending on the year with year-end surplus. And as you're aware, a certain amount of money comes back to the school districts and a certain amount of money comes out of the CTE programs back. And for years, they were able to have enough money to make some of those big purchases to keep their equipment modern and up to date for our students in those skill important positions. They have not been able to do that for a number of years. When I was there, we did an equipment analysis, built 5-year plans and a number of things, and then did a very close study. And you were unable to do it. In the last couple of years, Perry Dewey explored the legalities of creating and whether or not any CTE programs across the state used an equipment reserve. They do. An important note is they're not asking us for additional funding. This will be funded the same way. At the end of each year, they'll do an assessment and they'll move whatever amount of money they feel they can into the reserve to start building it and then apply it for those bigger purchases that they need to in their 5-year or 10-year equipment replacement plan. So it's just giving them a mechanism that BOCES is funded it's year to year. They don't have reserve accounts like a school district does. They don't have a fund balance like a school district does. So they have to rely on that year-end funding. And it just hasn't been there with declining enrollment, declining tuition. And so they've had to take another avenue in order to keep our equipment up to date for our kids. And as we know, without equipment, CTE does not exist. You can't build skills on equipment if you don't have the proper equipment. So this was, in my opinion, a positive move and something that was coming for 2-3 years. I was working to develop a Perry. So they're asking for our support. By law, each component district has to vote to approve it.
And a question, it states in here that the proceeds of the sale of the equipment that will also go into this reserve account.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the equipment at BOCES, not necessarily the equipment in the school districts, but this is equipment at BOCES specifically.
Correct. So if they do, for instance, if they identify 2 or 3 pieces of equipment to surplus, and then they're replacing it with one, or it's a 1-to-1, to get rid of a loader, replace it with a modern loader, the proceeds of that will offset the expense coming out of the account and keep helping to feed the reserve account.
Okay, good. Are there any questions?
So is that locked in that example then, Mike, if they were to sell a loader, it has to go back into this account or that fund?
That's what their intent is with this, yes, equipment to equipment.
Good.
And it really, Kevin, they would use it to help purchase equipment. So for them to utilize it and anchor it into the reserve account just makes sense because that's their mechanism to buy equipment.
Right. I like the idea that it stays with the equipment that in language that it doesn't get utilized elsewhere.
Yep, agreed.
All right. No further questions. Do we have a motion to accept or to approve that reserve?
Arnie will make that one.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, next we have authorization of an extension of a transportation contract with Roland V. Bus Corporation. And I believe this is starting March 15th, 2021 and continuing through June 30, 2021. And this also, may correct me if I'm wrong, this also addresses if the school is closed due to COVID concerns, that they will still be paid a rate of.
I'm not sure where you're referring to the dates that you read, but what the board is approving accomplishes two things. It extends our agreement with Rolling V through next school year, the 21-22 school year, and it also makes some adjustments for the end of this year. Starting last March, when Rolling V did not transport students due to COVID, we didn't pay them anything. And despite their requests several times, we weren't able to and didn't pay them for any of those times that they didn't transport. We've negotiated with the help of Bob Schofield's office language that would allow us to compensate them a portion of their normal fee if we're closed for certain periods of time related to COVID.
Okay, so that's being addressed back to March.
No, the agreement is just moving forward, so we won't owe them
Oh,
anything for prior closures.
Okay, and this will take us to the June 30th, 2022, the extension.
Correct.
Okay. Are there any questions or concerns on that? Do we have a motion to approve the extension of the transportation contract with Rolling V Bus Corporation?
Kevin will move it.
Second,
I'll second. Paul.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next, we have the acceptance of a school physician proposal. And this would be an agreement with UHS Delaware Valley Hospital and the Walton Central School District in the amount of $10,000 per year beginning July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2023. If there's no questions or concerns, do we have a motion to accept that agreement?
Arnie will move it.
Second,
Chad will
Kevin
second.
will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right. We are up to number 9, the tenure appointments. And we have 3 staff members that are being introduced this evening, and I will turn this over to Amanda Hoover. I'm looking at Holly down here in her little square box here.
Hi, everybody. Good evening.
Hello.
So I'm super, super excited to recommend tenure for Avi Brimstein. Avi, well, on my screen, she's at the bottom. She might not be at the bottom of your screen, so I can't direct you there. Anyway, Avi is just a light of sunshine all the time. She's phenomenal with children. She has such an amazing rapport with kids. It's absolutely perfect for an elementary school. I was lucky to be here when we hired her, and I've watched her grow over the years, and she's done a fantastic job for us. There's always so much work to be done in that department that's way more than one person can ever handle, and she handles it with grace and ease. And I highly recommend her for tenure.
And next we have Mr. Hoover.
Good to see everybody. So I have the pleasure to introduce 2 teachers. Both work with our 7th graders. Holly Latimer joined us as a science teacher, teaching out of certification, but did a fantastic job. And when we had an English opening, we were very lucky to kind of grab her, and she's done a fantastic job as our 7th grade English teacher. She works well with the kids, and she has the right amount of rigor, so the kids have to to work, and we're making sure they're getting those skills. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Holly Latimer. And the second educator I have the privilege of introducing is Noelle Granger. She is a Walton graduate. I was actually the director of special education when she applied to come to Walton. I was very excited to see that because I knew her growing up and knew she'd do a fantastic job, and heard great things about how great of an educator she was when she was in Franklin. And she's continued that here with our 7th graders, and also works with our middle and high school AVP, and does a fantastic job, goes above and beyond what anybody should ask of her to with that program. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to Noelle Granger. And we're very fortunate to have all 3 of these ladies with us, because I got to work with Avi when I was the director of special ed, and everything my wife said is true. She does a fantastic job. So to many, many more years for us.
Nice. All right, so then I will ask for a motion to approve these 3 for tenure.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Congratulations.
Congratulations to you all.
Wait,
And
Congratulations.
one of
thank
those
you
times
very
that-
much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
This is one of these times where we wish we were in person and we could celebrate in person and actually hand you certificates, but we're not quite there yet.
I'll
Congratulations.
personally deliver the certificates on behalf of the board. The next couple.
Thank you.
What about the cake we usually have, Dr. McDonald? Are you going to make that for us?
Exactly.
Ring cake, Mr. Booth.
Too bad we all didn't have a cupcake to hold up. Congratulations, well deserved.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Don't feel like you have to stay, ladies.
No, that's, we know you have other things to do. All right, we will move on to number 10, the adoption of the policy for the second reading. Paul, are you prepared for this or?
You know I am, Rhonda. Come on.
All right.
This is my time to shine here. All right. Policy number 101, gender neutral single occupancy bathrooms. Policy 115, sexual harassment, bullying prevention and intervention amendment. 120, formal Title IX complaints. 120-E, Title IX complaint form exhibit. And 9140.1, staff complaints and grievances amendment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to declare these policies as our second reading and adoption?
I'll
Motion.
move it.
Second.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Approved. And then we have to declare the policies obsolete.
Okay. That is just policy 110-E, sexual harassment exhibit, right? That's replaced with 110.2E and 115E amendment, correct?
Correct.
Yes,
Oh, and
correct.
110R?
The regulation that goes with it.
Okay, sexual harassment regulation. Okay.
All right, and this will be removed from our policy book. Do we have a motion to declare those obsolete?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we have our administrative remarks. Are there any questions? I did have one comment myself. I think it's wonderful, Mr. Hoover, with what you're starting to see, that the 3D printer is starting to be put back into use in the district. I think that's wonderful.
Next time you all are in the buildings, you'll have to take a field trip up to the used to be the computer lab, and now it's our makerspace. We have a lot of things going on in there, and hopefully we'll grow with it and have more and more kids get to have the hands-on stuff. Some really cool things.
I would like to highlight one thing in Mr. Loomis's high school report. If you notice, the first element addresses the exact item that our public comment was regarding this evening.
Yes.
And if you could recall that for several months, we talked about how the high school kids were kind of making their own decisions on whether or not, when they were supposed to be in person, if they weren't feeling well or rolled out of bed and didn't feel like coming in, they just signed in remote. In fact, I believe it came to our attention as a concern a number of times, even brought up by the board. I think, Miranda, actually, you mentioned it a couple times. So as that was explored and analyzed and talked about as an administrative team, even Townsend and middle school, they don't have that same situation. High school does. So we built the system, and long story short, phone call, contact, and they're put on a temporary list. And that's what has to occur. As we heard, there were bumps in the road with the SIF system getting started, and there was. And there were some communication lapses that Mr. Loomis has addressed. But it really has already started to make a difference. And it puts the decision-making and the control into the hands of the parents where it belongs. Students, high school students, do not get to make the decision to whether or not they're going to come to school. That's up to their parents and whether or not they're going to come to school. So that's essentially what the system has done. So I just wanted to highlight that it is in there as part of his reports as he's developed it. He has reported on that in the past as we were developing that process. So I think the system's getting there. There's bumps in the road anytime you implement anything, and we'll continue to address the public comment as well. But because it's here, I wanted to make sure to bring this forward.
Thank you for doing that and rolling that out, that plan. All of you administrators or everybody taking part in that. I think it's very important that, we set something in place as the pandemic, moved forward, that we needed more stricter rules on that. Can't
Yep.
just roll over and go to bed. I mean, for everybody's sake. So
Well, I
thank
think
you.
it falls along the lines, prior to COVID, if a parent went to work and thought that their student went to school, I think it becomes a safety issue that, the parent needs to know where their child is. And the school needs to know that was the plan, within the household, that student wasn't coming to school that day. So, yeah, I think it falls along the lines prior to COVID. If your child was going to be absent, they would phone in, to the school nurse or, the school to let them know that they would not be in attendance in person in school.
Right. Or be held accountable if parents thought they were in school and they weren't, and it didn't lie on the district. We would call, the district would call, and if they were skipping, then, and I think that goes along with this through, like you said, before the pandemic. And as we got through and learned more, that it was time to start bringing it full board back around. Can't just roll out of bed. If you need to be there, you need to be there.
Yep.
No more holding the hand type of thing.
And it's important to note that is the sole purpose of the new system. If a student needs to be out and they can remote in, they're not ill enough. Now, of course, we have said, and it was communicated, that if a child is truly sick, we'd rather have them rest and drink fluids and get better, and then make up their
Absolutely.
work as they can. But if it is a situation where they have the ability to log on remotely, we want them to have that ability. We absolutely want them to, but we just don't want them to be making the decisions. We want the parents to be informed and be making the decisions. And so the system is put in place and hopefully it'll work. And if you notice in Mrs. Hoover, she talks about the remote learners and moving them and transitioning them back. And from now to the end of the year, anybody who does have a COVID related, we're not forcing any of those situations, but any of them that don't, we're hopeful that they're going to start transitioning back maybe for the fourth quarter. And then in July, as I've said before, we're going to close off the remote learning. We're going to reset, and we're going to ask parents to reapply if they have a COVID-related condition, if the same regulation and parameter and expectation from New York State is in place that we do provide it. There's going to come a time where we're going to be told that we don't. And then we'll have to make a decision as a district as we go forward, because the teachers doing the dual with virtual and in person, that does change in the dynamic in the classroom and limits their activities that they're able to conduct. So as we can transition away from that, except in a rare occurrence, we truly want to. So we can get back to that in-person, hands-on, kinesthetic learning and all the different things that we can do. But if you're doing the remote and the in-person, it limits some of the things they can do as educators, and we don't want any limit on their creativity. So anyway, that's a little bit more than what I wanted to say, but that's me. And that's all I got for that, for those comments.
Well, and you had touched on it. I mean, if a student is sick, they're sick. You know, COVID aside, you know, we can still get ill over, you know, other things, common cold, anything other than COVID as well. So if you're truly sick, you're sick.
Exactly. And please stay home and feel better.
Right, right.
So do you want to move on to mine real quick?
Yes.
Okay. I actually, it's a superintendent remarks, but I'm going to kick it right back to Mrs. Hoover, because we had some very exciting news that I want her to share this evening, and we will send the details in the Friday letter. But because we're together this evening, good news is good news, and I can't not share it. So, Mrs. Hoover, if you could, share the news of the poem contest.
Sure. Give me 1 second here. I just want to read it to you so I don't get any of the pieces wrong, because it's really cool. Let's see. Okay, so Mrs. Guidell, who does amazing, awesome things all the time and finds things for kids to do, she had her classes submit poetry to the New York City Department of Education, Environmental Protections. They have an annual water resources, art, and poetry contest. So out of the submissions, Miss Wurzel's class actually won with lots and lots of submissions, the poetry contest. So they were super excited about that. And there's this little celebration they're going to do virtually online on April 30th that we get to invite the parents of the class to come in on the Zoom meeting also. So super excited, super cool. It was really profound too. I think you guys, I think Dr. McDonald shared it with you guys, right?
It's going to be set in the Friday letter.
Yeah, so it's really neat. They put a lot of spirit into it, which was really cool. So we were excited about that.
So some wonderful news.
And Mrs. Guidell does do a lot. I believe she's responsible for several library grants as well that she has taken upon herself and done.
Yeah, she's been the last few years been doing Mrs. Day as well, this Green Connections piece with, it's through the DEP also, and it is a New York City classroom that pen pals with our classes, and they are doing some virtual meetings next week as well. So she's got a lot of cool things going on that she's continued through COVID that are fantastic.
Nice.
And then the next item, if you haven't seen it yet, the email from Corey this afternoon regarding the National Technical Honor Society inductions that are occurring Thursday night. A little short notice, but everybody's scrambling this spring, BOCES as well. And they're doing a virtual. There's 2 district representatives that can go. Mr. Loomis is going to go to be with the students, and we're hoping that one of the guidance counselors can go. So it's 2 individuals that are closest in relationship to the students. If not, I will go and represent. And then the live feed of the program is available that we've sent the link to. So anyone who would like to go on and to watch the induction ceremony can. And I know this is a tough one, because this is one of those ceremonies that for years and years and years, Walton was one of the most represented school districts on behalf of their students. Rhonda, I think you've gone almost every year that you've been president, as well as several board members. So this is a tough one, but they had to limit it due to capacity. They went to 2 with the student, with a parent. and then 2 from the district. So we're gonna go from there. So just wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. That's great news. We had 3 inductees this year, as we noticed were evident in the email. That's all I have.
That is a nice event, and it's nice to see what our students and the other students that are there, what they've accomplished at such young ages. It's amazing.
Yep, it is.
All right, so there is a need for executive session for the purpose of discussing contractual negotiations. So I will ask for a motion to enter into executive session.
Arnie will make it.
Second,
Kevin will second it.
all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Opposed? And I don't believe we will have any action after executive session, correct? You're not anticipating any?
Correct.
Okay, so I will ask for a motion to come out of executive session and to adjourn within one motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, we'll see you in executive session.
Um,
Thank you.
Mrs. Hungerford, if you would like to join, that's going to be brief on negotiations. Is that okay if Mike comes to do
Yes,
it?
by all means, yes.
Okay.